Burnout.
Oh, yeah. And it's even tougher these days with technology because so many people are walking around staring at their phones. They're not looking around. They're not seeing what God, the universe, whatever you choose to believe in as a higher power, is putting right there as opportunities. Now, it doesn't, again, your dream car is not going to be sitting in your driveway with a big giant ribbon on it. It's going to be somewhere out there today, but you've got to be paying attention. You've got to be around the right people. You have to have the right people.
Burnout.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the Rania Show. I'm your host, Rania, and each week we have a story to share with you, whether it's mine or our guests. Tune in as we discuss trauma, manifestation, and everything in between.
And today we have with us Steve Gamlin, and he's going to share his story and tell you a little bit more about himself and what inspires him. Go for it, Steve.
Thank you, Rania. My name is Steve Gamlin, currently 58 years old, reside in New Hampshire, the Northeast U.S. I've enjoyed for the past 20 plus years being a keynote speaker and also creator of Vision Board Mastery, where I help people to see what their ultimate life is all about. I do this because I've had people in my life who believed in me, especially when I did not believe in myself. So I've wanted to be that person for others as we go. And I've been on over 300 podcasts as a featured guest over the years, all around the world. And my number one goal today is to be a human plus sign, to leave a situation better than I find it, and to drop a few pieces of motivational firewood. I own the trademark on that phrase as a speaker, for anybody with a spark in their heart for something they'd like to create in their life, so that something you and I talk about inspires somebody to believe in themselves just a little bit more.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what put you on this trajectory? Like, you said there were moments where others believed in you rather than you believing in yourself. But what was that moment you were just like, I should make a living out of this, and, to help others the way that I was helped and supported when I didn't believe in myself?
Yeah, here's how I explain it to people that ask, how did you get where you are today? And I just look them right in the eye and say, I've screwed my life up way more than you could ever dream of. And it's from those moments that somebody would ask a question or reach out or share something. In my early 20s, I was 24 years old, broken, depressed, living on my grandfather's couch. 2 years out of college, which I had no plan of how to even use the degree that I barely got anyway. I graduated summa cum this close.
Oh, wow.
And a friend of mine asked, hey, why didn't you ever follow your dream of being on the radio? Since we were kids, you always said you were going to be on the radio. And a few weeks later, I actually pursued that dream and wound up with a 10-year radio career. When I crashed and burned that in my early 30s, in a very short window of time, I walked away from a successful radio career because I was absolutely burnt out and fried. My first marriage ended, and I was tens of thousands of dollars in debt in my early 30s because I wasn't paying attention to where the money was going. And in the midst of that, I spent an hour one day in a thunderstorm at a mini golf place. They had a little driving range, and I was standing underneath power lines, barefoot in the wet grass in a thunderstorm, hitting golf balls, getting out all my demons and frustrations and self-loathing for where I put my life. And the very next day, a coach I had just started working with asked, how was your week? And I told them a very pathetic yet incredibly funny self-deprecating version of that hour. And he asked, have you ever thought of being a motivational speaker or a stand-up comedian? I think you'd be really good at both. He didn't know those were two more of my 4 goals that I had when I was 11 years old.
Wow.
Radio, comedy, a teacher of people, and also author of my own books. And a few weeks later, I was in a comedy class. I attended Toastmasters, and my first book came out about a year later.
That's amazing. That's
So,
amazing.
God keeps sending me angels, just described as regular, everyday people.
Yeah.
To ask me questions that inspired me to believe in myself a little bit more, because each one said, I think you'd be really good at that and you'd really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So here we are.
And I feel like that's like a manifestation of like who you are on a subconscious level, because you already had those thoughts, you already had those questions inside of you. And then it's just like hearing them from somebody else was like validation, confirmation that what you desire wants you to. And so I think that's amazing. Like, and then you took the action steps to make it happen. You didn't just say like, oh, I can't do this. I'm too old for this. Or, it's too late. It was like, no, I want it and I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, we see people do that all the time. They say, I want to be rich. I want to be rich. I want to be rich. And then we see Powerball hitting $1 billion and they're going, I want to be a billionaire. I want to be a billionaire. And you ask them, did you buy a ticket? And they go, no, I'll never win.
Yeah.
Like, your butt cheeks and your couch cushions have to get a divorce.
Yeah.
If you want to really get out and manifest everything, because it's not just going to show up and knock on your door.
Yeah. And I think there is that misconception of like, if you pray hard enough for it, or you want it really bad, it's just going to show up and like, God's going to bless you. But it's like, God's also sending you steps to take. God's putting people in front of you to ask questions, that's God's way of helping you answer your prayers. But you're just like, no, it's just going to come knocking on my door and it's just going to show up just because I want it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work that way. But that's like, I feel like that's what we were taught to believe growing up. They're like, you just got to keep praying, like go to church, go to the mosque, go to, what religion you come from and what you believe in. And then it's like, but it's not showing up. But it's like, God gave you everything that you needed, but you didn't show up. So that's why it hasn't showed up.
Oh, yeah. And it's even tougher these days with technology because so many people are walking around staring at their phones. They're not looking around. They're not seeing what God, the universe, whatever you choose to believe in as a higher power, is putting right there as opportunities. Now, it doesn't, again, your dream car is not going to be sitting in your driveway with a big giant ribbon on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be somewhere out there today, but you've got to be paying attention. You've got to be around the right people. You have to have the right frame of mind. You have to have I believe, a grateful heart for every little tiny opportunity that shows up. And when you stack those up, that's when you realize you're getting to what you want. And in the process, one of the biggest things that I believe is you have to become the best version of yourself to get there, to really recognize the opportunity and believe you deserve it, because we see so many people win Powerball or Megabucks. And within 3 to 5 years, they're not only broke, not only is the money gone, they're in debt because they didn't believe they were worthy of having that. So they depleted all of it right away. So I believe the big thing is to manifestation is becoming the best version of yourself, to believe you are worthy of achieving and having that. And that's huge. It's a huge thing a lot of people are missing.
Yeah. And I feel like, like going back to what you're saying, like the Powerball winners, like they depleted within 3 to 5 years. And then they like end up being depressed, or they have like mental health issues. And I feel like that also comes from the state of mind that they were in when they won the Powerball. So it's like, people think that if I had this or if I have that, then things are going to change. But no, it all starts from within. And, you're saying like being the best version of yourself. So what would you say to people that don't know what that version is yet?
Oh, one of my favorite things to do, and I've talked about this several times this week, go somewhere quiet. Leave all technology in the car or at home. Bring a couple of pens in case you get real excited about this like I do. I have to bring at least 2 or 3 pens and a notebook or a journal or a padded paper. Go sit somewhere and just start writing. Describe where your life is right now. And don't just say my life stinks over and over and over. Just be very, very open with yourself. Nobody else ever has to see or read this. Mm-hmm. But if you get it out there, you may find out that you're actually painting a doom and gloom picture of a life that's really not that bad, but you're just, because of the pressures all around you, you're thinking your life has to be perfect in order for you to matter and make a difference in this world, or even be successful, or worthy of love or friendship or anything. So many people focus on one part of their life that might not be working, and they dismiss all these other amazing qualities about themselves. So I urge people to do it using a tool that I use a lot. It's pretty standard in the personal development world. It is a life wheel. And the one that I use, I've kind of tweaked for the way that I teach things. It has 8 spokes. So if it's standing up, it looks like a wagon wheel. If it's laying down, it looks like a pizza, if that's a better representation for some people. It is for me. I usually go for pizza. Your physical health, your emotional well-being. I mean, imagine that, setting goals for the emotions you want to feel on a regular basis. That's huge. Yeah. Your closest relationships, your core values that guide all of your thoughts, words, and actions, kind of like your inner law code. your faith, if that's an important part of your life, whatever guidance comes from the higher power or whatever your good book may be, your connection with the world in real ways. And if the pandemic taught us nothing else, it's how lonely and disconnected we are as humans. And depression, anxiety, addiction, and some very bad energy came out of a lot of that for a lot of people. And then your career and your money. So basically tell the story of your life where it is right now. You might find out that things aren't as bad as you believe they are. You're listening to too many outside voices. And from there, that's like your point A on your GPS. From there, think of where you'd like your life to be in 1 year. Don't start with the 20-year thing like all the other gurus talk about. I'm not a guru, by the way. I hate that word. 1 year from today, how would you like your life to be incrementally better than now? It takes a lot of the overwhelm out of it, and it helps people to realize they're not as bad off as they thought they were. They're not in as bad of a place as they thought they were. They're just listening to too many other voices and listening to too many people trying to tell them what the definition of success is.
Yeah. And I think it also like goes with like social media nowadays and just like seeing whether it's like influencers or whoever, they're sharing what they're doing on a daily basis. They're sharing their life, but they're also sharing from a perspective of where they are from all the work they did. You know, it's not like they showed you the before, they're showing you the after to show you that it is possible for you too. But, you know, when you sit there and you start comparing yourself to what everybody else has, it's like you're, like you said, it's, you get into that like state of mind of like, you know, my life is miserable. I don't have the things that I want. And it's like this big to-do list. When you're thinking about the to-do list that you have in your head, you feel overwhelmed. You feel like, oh my God, how am I going to get all of this stuff done? But then when you write it down and you start checking it off one by one, you're like, oh, that's not a lot of things. Like, oh, I can do this. And sometimes you end up banging out like 5 of them within an hour. And you're just like, oh, my list just got a lot shorter. And I think that's the same perspective about like where your life is now and where you want it to be.
Yeah, I compare it to an old wooden roller coaster. Now, I'm a big fan of those.
Yeah.
Because, well, we have one here in southern New Hampshire. It's about, I think, 1,000 years old at this point, but it's still standing. So I will ride it this year again.
It works. It works.
But yeah, if it works, it works. You know, you start off at basically parking lot level with everybody else. You all start off at the same place. Any one of your goals, don't even say the ultimate version of my life. Just think of one of your goals, if it's going to take a little time to achieve, is at the top of that first hill. And these old wooden roller coasters do not hold that many people. So you want to make sure you have got the right people with you on your ride in your life as your inner circle, as your tribe. You want to make sure you're in the right one, because you don't want to be going click, 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 and listening to people behind you complaining the whole time. So you want to make sure you get the right people. And then you have to understand, you can't start halfway up and you can't skip any. You have to sit there. It's very monotonous for a lot of people like me. I crawl out of my skin sometimes because I've got ADD, ADHD, OCD, EIEIO, AEIOU, and sometimes Y. I mean, I got it all in my head. But you have to go click, 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 click. And you may wish you could be at the top right away. But again, you got to become the right version of yourself to get there. But when you do get even halfway up, you might think, wow, that's still pretty far away. If you look over your shoulder, all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, I've come all this way. I feel confident. I'm excited to see what's on the other side. And when you do the last step it takes to achieve something, you go over the top and you couldn't stop that ride if you tried, because the momentum of everything you did is going to take you all the way to the end. You can scream, you can cry, you can, hang on, white knuckle it, whatever you want to do. But when you get to the end, if you were thrilled by that ride and excited for the possibilities, what's the first thing you want to do? Get back in line, go on again. And here's where I believe we're all coaches to an extent. When you get back in line and you're excited for your next goal, look around you. And if you see somebody looking up at the top and they look petrified, just ask them, hey, is this your first time doing this? Are you setting a new goal? Are you new to personal development? Are you trying to improve your life? And they may go, yeah. why don't you sit next to me? Let me tell you a little story on the way up here. We get to be that person to help other people because it helps us in the long run. And it's a beautiful ride. And that's one of the most requested stage stories that I get asked to share, even all these years later.
Yeah, it is. It's so true. And like, it's amazing. And it's such a great visual of like, you start out with fear, but then when you actually take the steps to discover what's on the other side of fear, you'll be surprised. And like you said, it's not like, you're coasting on a rainbow the whole time. I call them potholes. There's potholes, there's like hurdles that you need to get through in order to achieve it as like you're going up slowly. And I think, another misconception is like people think that once you're like, if you say, I'm going to think happy thoughts, I'm going to be positive, and just like everything's going to shift. But when you don't believe yourself, but you're just like, it's like you memorize the script and you just keep repeating it. It's kind of like acting. You have the script.
Yeah.
Then you make the notes of like, how do I think this person is feeling as they're saying these words? How do I think this person is feeling as they're, confronting the other person in that script? And you make notes and you embody that character that you're becoming for like the movie or the show or the play that you're putting on. So it's like the same thing. It's, there's so many things that you go through and levels of emotions, like the roller coaster that you're speaking about. But you're actually like sitting there and you're making notes and you're like, okay, well, this person's currently feeling this way. By the end of the script, they're going to feel this way. How do I go from here to there? And it's not like it is a roller coaster of emotions. It's not like a one and done or like, that's it, I'm going to be happy, so the rest of my life is. No, there's things that are like preparing you to get to that end result that you're looking for. And it's just finding the little sunshine moments, the little, gratitude in everything that's happened. And my question for you would be is like, if to share with our viewers and our listeners, what was there any specific moments that come to mind where you were just like, oh, this is it, this is all gonna go to shit now, and then you're just like, but wait a minute.
Yep.
There's still the gratitude in this. So it's like,
oh yeah,
how did you shift yourself out of like, oh, I don't like this roller coaster, I don't like the next click that it's going up to, and then it's just like, but I'm just gonna, have faith in it and see where it leads me.
yeah. If poor self-talk, lack of confidence, and just a lack of self-respect were an Olympic sport, I would have won the gold for most of my life. I didn't find the gratitudes. I would, even looking in the mirror first thing in the morning, according to my journals in the early 2000s, when I quit radio, went through a divorce, and found myself in the ashes. According to my journal pages, I used to love to refer to myself as Hurricane Dumbass Category 5.
Wow.
And I would actually say that to myself in the mirror on a regular basis. I'd get up and I go, oh, it's you. You're an idiot. Look what you did to your life. And a little over 15 years ago, now that carried into me speaking. It wasn't like it just disappeared.
Yeah.
About 15 years ago, I was speaking at an event where a guy I had recently met, we became super quick friends, like brothers, and he brought me in to speak at his event for 3 days. It was a small event, but I spoke all 3 days. Well, on the third day, I was running out of material and I was in a very bad mood. And I went on a self-deprecating rant from the stage because the first bad thing I said, I got a laugh, so I kept going. And I just trashed my credibility and my reputation in front of that audience. He pulled me aside afterward. He goes, bro, if I ever hear you talk to or about yourself like that again, we're no longer brothers, and I will never have a place for you on my stage again. He goes, bro, that was brutal to watch. And he kicked me so hard. I always say he kicked me really, really hard in a place in my body my doctor only gets to see once a year. But he made his point.
Yeah.
And I suddenly decided that I was going to at least not destroy myself. And a couple of years ago, I listened to a message from Mel Robbins, who I absolutely love. And she said, it took me till my 50s to look in the mirror and say, I love you, Mel. So I
Mm.
start off every day now. I high five myself, another one of Mel's lessons. High five myself in the mirror with a big smile. And I say, I love you because you're a good guy with a big heart. And since losing my beloved wife, Tina, a year and a half ago, and I always close my eyes, lean my head and smile, I go, and you love your Tina. So today, you're going to honor yourself. You're going to honor Tina, and you're going to be a plus sign in this world. And that's how I start every single day now. And I actually believe it when I say it, which I never could all those years ago.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's like you literally went from and you've seen the shift, like from how you used to talk to yourself, and the fact that your friend, like who's like a brother to you, just pulled you aside and he was like, dude, what are you doing? And
Yeah.
then that also like inspired you to be like, oh my God, like if he's saying that was brutal, like imagine what it's sounding like to myself when I say it every single day in the mirror. And it's like you're just draining yourself slowly. And that light that you once had in you is just fading completely away. And your friend was that sliver of light that started to like pour into you. And you were just like, man, if he's saying that, like, okay, how do I like bring in more sunshine into my life, into my state of mind? And then you went for it and you took that little thing and turned it and expanded it into this big thing where now you help others do it. And that's really amazing. And like losing someone like your wife, because that's your partner, like you wake up to every day, and you, before you close your eyes at night, that's the person that's laying next to you. And you could have just been like, yeah, well, my wife died. That's it. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. But you use Tina as inspiration to keep going and to keep having that gratitude and to keep moving forward. And I think that's such an amazing, amazing thing to hear. And thank you so much for sharing it with us.
No, thank you. And I get challenged on that. People say, well, Steve, I have nothing to be grateful for. And I say, there's always something.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I get challenged. Well, when Tina passed in early December of 2024, we had just arrived 24 hours prior in London. We were there for a 5-day vacation, and she literally passed. She had a massive heart event in our hotel room while I was downstairs at the gym. I came back up, and I found her. She still had a pulse when I found her. The hotel staff, who was a member with medical training, came running up and said she still has a pulse. So she actually let me help work with her to try to resuscitate Tina while the EMTs were on their way. They were not able to revive her. But I'm so grateful that she had a pulse. When she did pass, she was in my arms. I was holding her, crying all over her, saying, I love you and you're not supposed to leave me. And I pray that she could hear me saying that I loved her. But I'm very grateful that she was still technically there with me so that I could hold her. It was day 6,386 of us being in love, 17 and a half years. Yeah. So I get to be grateful, and I'm still grateful. And I'm grateful that she showed me just 2 days ago, she's still here with me. She made one of the light bulbs in my ceiling fan in my office start blinking.
Oh.
On a very important day. We had some serious business to take care of. And when I got home later that day, the light started blinking.
That's amazing.
So yeah, she's here. She still shows me, and I'm grateful for every little sign that she
The lights
gives me.
just flickered, by the way.
Did they really?
Again.
So Tina's
Hi.
on this podcast, and if she was here when I went back upstairs, she would go, "How was your podcast?" I say, "Oh, it was amazing." And she would always look at me and roll her eyes and go, "Did you tell our story?" I said, "Babe, our story got me on Oprah's radio network 4 times talking about law of attraction. So yeah, I told our story. Actually, I've never told it. I've relived it hundreds of times, but I've never just told it. I feel it every time. And that is also a gift for which I'm very grateful that I get to relive our love story to help other people believe in love and believe in themselves."
That's amazing. That's see, but like you had something tragic happen, but you're using it like and where you are now, and now you're using it to help others with it. You're not like walking around with it as like this badge of hurt and like rejection. It's more like a badge of honor that you had that experience and you got to share it with someone that you love so much. Tina left you with these memories and these conversations that you still revisit. And, she comes through and visits you from time to time just to remind you that she'll always be with you, even though she's not physically sitting right next to you. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. I was going to ask you, so what, we know your purpose, we know what you're doing. Oh, by the way, did you end up becoming a comedian? Because you mentioned the
I
radio.
did. I did stand-up comedy for 7 years here in New England and hopped the train from Boston to New York City a couple of times, did some shows there. I was never much more than an open mic comedian or, at a comedy club, opening act. Occasionally, if somebody was running late, I would be a middle act. But I just really enjoyed it. And it actually was the greatest thing I ever could have done to help with my speaking, because I transitioned all of the clean, appropriate humor into my speaking. And that's one of the things that helps me to get hired coming in.
That's awesome. Well, I'm
Yeah.
happy you got to live out the comedian dream for 7 years. And, and it just transcended into what you do now. And it was all like stepping stones, like the roller coaster that you're talking about, the click, click. And that was one of them. That's amazing to hear. And then what ripple effect, like I know you were saying, you be a plus and you want to leave the world a better place, or a conversation better than when it first started. What ripple effect are you hoping that's going to create? Because you're going in, you're having conversation, or you're doing something to help someone. What are you hoping that person that you come across is going to do with that?
My biggest hope is that they get inspired to either pay it forward, where if I do an act of kindness or pay a compliment to someone, that their next conversation with somebody will be a lot more positive than it might have been. And also that they may see an opportunity that they would have missed if we hadn't had that conversation. They may have been having a bad day. And if I said something uplifting or inspiring or funny or whatever, that they were standing a couple inches taller and their eyes were facing forward, not staring at the ground. One of my favorite ones ever, and it exemplifies this so beautifully. I was speaking for 43 total events for the state of Massachusetts and state of New Hampshire, all for free.
Oh, wow.
They had these organizations with unemployed people, some of which had been unemployed at the time for more than a year. And I did 43 of them in a span of just a couple of years. And those ended around 2010 or 11. And in the summer of 2013, I was driving in between appointments and I remembered, oh my gosh, I need some breakfast bars. So I stopped at a grocery store that I just happened to be driving past, and I'm walking down what I refer to as the Captain Crunch aisle, because that was my favorite cereal as a child. And a gentleman walked past me and he turned around and I heard his voice. Hey man, you're that speaker, right? And I turned around. I said, we're the only two people in the aisle. I said, yes, sir, I'm a speaker. What do you remember? He goes, the monster truck couple, which was part of one of the stories that I shared. No matter where you are, pay attention to the people that have the most interest and energy in connecting with you. And he said, this is the picture that was on the screen. This is the story you told. This is the lesson behind it. And I wanted to let you know, a week after that meeting, I went for a job interview, and there were 3 people interviewing me, and I instantly knew who the most interested and energetic person was. So that was my monster truck person. I said, and what happened? He goes, oh, I got the job. And I just thought, oh my gosh. I said, when was that? He went, 3 years ago. Geez, I never thought I'd see you again, but thank you. That's still 13 years ago was when he told me this. And every time I get on stage or every time I'm on a podcast, I always say, okay, somebody in this audience needs this today. And they need to understand that they need to find the most positive energy around them and tap into it and connect with it to make something good happen. But they got to do the work, as you said earlier. But that's what I want. Every time I step out my door, get out of my truck, in the parking lot of a grocery store, rescuing an abandoned cart, paying somebody a compliment, or being introduced up on a stage in front of 1,000 people. Same goal every time.
That's amazing. It really does go a long way when you are that person and then you're creating that ripple effect. It's like we definitely need more of that in our world right now with everything
Yeah.
that's going on, and just like it doesn't cost anything, you know what I mean? It's just like an energetic exchange of like, I really want you to have the best day ever. I really want what's good for you. Uh,
Yeah.
and like sometimes I'll do this thing where like if I'm driving or walking and stuff, and I'll see like, a dead animal, because when like they run out in the street and then they get, ugh. And I just like imagine myself like sprinkling a little magic on them. Or like if I see somebody on the side of the road where like, there was like an accident, like a fender bender, whatever it was, and I'll just like sprinkle some magic on them. Like I just imagine myself doing it, and just like that's my way of like sending them like a good blessing, or like, wishing the best for them. And it didn't take anything. I didn't have to get out of my car. I didn't have to approach the person. I didn't, have to pay a fee. They didn't have to pay. You know what I mean? It's just
Yep.
it's just having that intention of wanting world peace, of wanting like inner peace, wanting, with everything's happened. Like, you mentioned COVID earlier, and I feel like the with the mental health and everything's happened, and people being alone, or like watching loved ones like die in front of them, and then having to sit with that for days because it was so new. Nobody knew what to do, and nobody was like coming to take the deceased because they didn't know like how the virus was going to spread. And like imagine sitting with that and just like having someone you care about just like there, and you're just walking past them every single day. And it's like it it wasn't I feel like there wasn't support, or like people's needs weren't met, in the sense of like acknowledging what had happened and actually processing it to heal from it. It was like shoved under the rug
Yeah.
almost. And I feel like it expanded from there, because their state of mind and what they were going through, and then suppressing it, because it was like, well, the world keeps on moving and we just have to keep trekking along. And because those needs weren't met, because that support wasn't given and provided, it just like it became their ripple effect, and they just
Yeah.
carried that with them. And then, then they passed it on to the next person they came across, because now they're angry and resentful of what happened in their life. So then if they see somebody smiling, oh, you don't get to be happy, I'm not happy, so now I'm going to
Right.
make you as miserable as I am. And it's
Yep.
like, especially like back in the day and stuff, mental health wasn't something that was acknowledged. It was such a big taboo. Like if you go to therapy, it's a big taboo if you're saying like, I'm feeling depressed, or, it was like, no, you don't feel like that. You have to act like a big boy or a big girl, and you have to be strong. And it was just like that trickled, and it's that generational trauma, and it's that cycle just repeating itself. And now we had this like catastrophic event with COVID, and now we have another catastrophic event happening in the world right now that's created such a divide with people, with their like nationalities, with their religions, with the color of their skin, with the sex, if you're a female or a male, or and I know some people like it's the they them, and to each his own. Like, we'll be sitting here a while if I acknowledge
Yeah.
every single. And my thing is like, it's that fear of the unknown, but rather than actually sitting with it and just be like, what am I really scared of? Am I scared of someone who's like, transgender, or like, or is it something within me that makes me fear them? Is it what I'm seeing in the media that's making me fear them? So it's like when you start questioning these things and you actually like sit with them, you realize like, I have nothing to be scared of. That person is choosing to live their life the way they see fit. They're not harming me, they're not harming themselves. So why can't they just choose their life for themselves? why is it being forced upon them, or trying to control the narrative, or like using history as an excuse, or like a belief that what's being done in the world right now is okay, when it's not. It's like you went through something, and now you're just, again, like you're using what you went through and the resentment and the anger and everything that happened with you, but now you're lashing out at other people, and you're trying to do the same thing to them that was done to you, and you're doing it on a bigger scale. So it's yeah.
Oh yeah. 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't, or maybe it didn't seem as bad as it does now, because with social media, oh my gosh, you can wake up in a bad mood and put a rant on social media, and it goes around the world in half a second.
Yeah.
And when you get a lot of people screaming like that all at once, oh my gosh, it's deafening.
Yeah.
Just how angry, and it's like everybody with a super soaker full of gasoline, just shooting it around at everything around them and just trying to burn everything down. And it magnifies and intensifies everything. When, like you said, at the bottom of it all, we're all just human beings trying to survive in this world. So I do my best every day. And I love what you said earlier about whenever you're driving and you see something, either an animal who may have been hit or somebody who was in an accident, you just take that moment and you just wish good energy their way.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. For me, it's we live here in southern New Hampshire. We have a decent sized airport, and anytime I'm near it, I see a jet either taking off or coming in. So I always wish, I said, just when you land, I hope it's a smooth landing, and I hope the beverage cart does not smack anybody in the elbows today. Or hit somebody in the head when they're napping and their head falls into the aisle, which is why I refuse to get an aisle seat, because I'm 6'2". My head's going to get taken right off by that thing. But I wish that every time. Now that last part of it is silly, but it makes me laugh.
Yeah.
But I'm wishing a plane full of people an amazing day. And if we spent more time doing that and wished well for others, even if we're not feeling good about ourselves that day, or angry at a hurt or something that was done to us, the more you send the good energy out, I believe it helps to heal us on its way out.
Mm-hmm. And it comes back. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like a boom. It's the boomerang effect, what you put out comes back. And that's also like the law of attraction. It's like you are what you create, or you are what you think, it's what you're putting out there. And like with social media, like, there's a lot of like, I got to stop reading comments, because I feel like that just like gets me fired up.
Oh,
but
yeah.
The good thing about social media, though, is like everything's out in the open and nothing's hidden anymore. It's not like when growing up, like when you watch the news, all it was just negative things that are happening. And it's like, but that conditioned you to be like, oh my God, the world is not safe. And they also like controlled the narrative. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
With social media, I feel like, because they can't control the narrative and like everything's out in the open, it's amazing. But at the same time, it's creating overwhelm. And then it's like you can't necessarily filter through what is actually happening and what isn't. And I feel it's like people get overwhelmed by all this information that's coming through. And it's like they go into fight or flight. Like they don't know how to approach it. They don't know if they should say something. And it creates all this fear, and it creates such a divide. And it's not to say like a lot of the things that you see, it's factual, because you see it on like more than one occasion. It's not like just one video but it's like, again, there isn't that support and like the needs being met. And it's just creating this whole cluster of like resentment, anger, violence, hate. And it's like, just by what I do and what you do, we're dissipating a little bit of that. You know what I mean? And it's just like we're slowly, it's taking time, because you and I are just like two people. So but it's still creating something, and you and I could just be like, you know what? It's not working. Let me just blend in and just like stop trying. But like, and I'd speak on my behalf of like, no, I'm not going to keep trying, because the moment I give up, the moment I'm going to, like, my internal is going to start deflating, and I'm going to become a person that I don't like. And I'm not going to
Mm.
do that, you know?
Yeah, it's very easy for that to happen. I've had, there's been some stuff going on in the background that has not been very easy to deal with. And there have been a couple of weeks where I would wake up and I'd be angry. Something would just turn me off and I would get upset. And I would post a couple of things where I would rant a little bit. And I had a couple of people reach out to me going, Steve, I know you're going through stuff, but come on, man, this is not you. You know,
Mm,
I come to your page because I know that I will hear something inspiring or positive or funny. You know, I try to blend humor into pretty much everything I do.
yeah.
And they'll say, look, you know, Steve, you've been for a couple days now, you've had this little tinge of anger to you. And I just want to say that's not an attractive thing for who I know you really are. And then I realize that, like, oh my gosh, I let myself slide back down the mountain a little bit. I got to get back up the mountain to where I know I need to be, not for other people, but for me,
Hmm.
for that person in my mirror to be that best person. You know, I may not have been a minus sign, but I was not a plus sign those days. I was
Yeah.
kind of like, you know, they canceled each other out. It was virtual zero. And that's not where I want to be. I want to be a plus sign every day.
Yeah. And then, like, how do you, so, you know, we all have our own beliefs, we all have our own way of looking at things, and, um, you know, just wanting to see the world like a reflection of like just peace and love.
Mhm.
So, like, the people that said to you, like, hey, you came off a little negative, that's not like you still had, you know, your rant for a reason. You still have your moment of like where you're feeling something. It's an emotion and you were expressing it, and you brought it up to the surface to be processed. So how do you deal with when you have things that come up for you that, you know, it's frustrating because you feel like you have no control over what's happening? So how do you deal with that in a way of still expressing yourself without coming off like resentful or angry or violent, but you're still getting your point across because it is your belief and it's something that you're so passionate about sharing, but you just don't want to, you don't want to come off like you're attacking anyone. You know, you're just
Right.
sharing your story along everybody else in this world that just wants to share what inspires them, what they believe in, um, and what they want to create in the world.
A lot of times I go back to the pen and paper thing and I go, all right, where was that coming from? And I find out it's not typically whatever it was I was ranting about. It's something else
Mm,
that's causing the bile to kind of build up
mhm,
inside and rot my soul a little bit that day. We can't control what happens to us. And many speakers have said this. I don't even know who to quote as who originally said it. But we have the choice of how we react and
mm,
respond to
mhm,
everything. And a perfect example, this happened about, it's got to be at least 10 years ago now. My family and I have a small nonprofit, and we are dedicated to consistent acts of kindness. Matter of fact, my sister, my mom, and my stepmom right now, at the time of this conversation, are have already baked, and now they're presenting and sharing desserts at a local homeless shelter. They go
wow,
there once a month. Well, I found out about another nonprofit who, according to a CNN study about 16 years ago, was rated the worst nonprofit in America. They collect through telemarketing because they own the telemarketing company. They get about $300 million a year in donations.
wow.
And they're called the Children's Wish Network. They try to make themselves sound like Make-A-Wish. Now, I love Make-A-Wish. I'm a volunteer. They give less than 1% of the money they raise to help people. They keep the rest. So they are the most evil nonprofit in the world. So the day I found that out, I went on social media and I had the most profanity laced, violent rant I've ever put on social media. I wished every single person who has anything to do with that company the worst diseases, the worst life situations, and everything. I mean, it was violent. For me, it was
Yeah,
violent.
yeah.
And I had a client reach out to me in a direct message and say, Steve, if I were you, I would take that down, man. I don't ever want to see you like that. That's not you. Come on. So I thought, okay, I took it down, but I was still mad. So I thought, how can I make it a reaction and a response that would be identified with me and maybe use a little humor? So I found a picture of a giant Great Dane's head. And I said, this is essentially what it said. For those wishing karma on others, maybe if you thought of it this way, if you think of karma as a Great Dane, as a seagull with the digestive output of a lactose intolerant Great Dane locked in an ice cream truck. And I put that up there, and I reached out to that person and I said, how's that? And they texted back all the laughing emojis that they could come up with. They go, mwah, that's you.
Yeah.
Said, I still get that you're very unhappy about what's going on in the world, but you just put it in such a way that it made me laugh, but it also made me think, yeah, that's not right. That's not something I wish to support. Now that I'm aware of it, I can spread the word that, hey, maybe these people aren't doing the best thing out there. Maybe there are other people we could support.
Yeah.
So it was just that shift back into who and what I'm all about, using humor, of course.
Yeah.
That's how it gets me back on track. Cause hey, I'm human like anybody else. I can have a really bad day and react very, very strongly about something, but it has to represent who I really am. I don't want to make it worse.
Yeah.
I want to raise awareness at the very least to help make the world a little bit better.
Thank you for that. That's really inspiring. Like for me, what I do is like I share on my stories, like things that are actually happening. And I post on my stories, and I still try to keep in mind of like the same thing as you is like it's not coming off to like create a further divide. It's not trying, to put anybody in harm's way. It's just stating what is actually happening and bringing awareness to what's going on in the world at this moment. And it's tough because sometimes you're just like, you get so boiled up, especially when you feel like it's out of your control, what's happening. And like, there's nothing you can do about it, but you are doing something about it by bringing awareness, but doing it in a way where you're not adding to the divide. You're not adding to the violence. You're not adding to the hurt. And I think it's something great to always like remember that what's your intention behind this message that you want to put out there. So thank you for sharing that. It's really inspiring. It's a good thing to keep in mind. And like, and there's so many of those things. Like recently they came out with Cars for Kids, where they said the money was actually going to fund trips to Israel, rather than actually the money being donated to help kids. So there's a lot of things. And it's just like, again, like I'm part of a non-for-profit too, that my sister-in-law started, and we do food pantries. At least like we try to do it once a month, where we just give out food and help people. And then like, now we want to do like workshops and just like you said, the same thing that you're a part of. You just want to spread love, and you want to spread awareness, and you just want to support people and help them like strive and grow. And that's really the purpose. So I feel like when you move forward with intention and your why you're doing what you're doing, it really shines through. And then you just end up manifesting all these people that come, and then they start wanting to support you. They do things. And it does make a difference, even though, when you zoom out, it looks like it's just creating that tiny ripple effect, but it's like the butterfly effect, flaps its wings, and then all of a sudden it just keeps going and creating more and more. So, yeah.
And we may not even believe that we're making a difference by doing something that to us might seem trivial. And I can remember one of the shelters actually where the name of our nonprofit is Beach Bum Philanthropy. So my mom and stepmom are known as the Beach Bum Moms. So the place they're at right now, and they are famous locally, by the way, they're just treated like queens everywhere they go because they have huge hearts.
Awesome.
I stopped in at this one particular shelter about 5 years ago. And I had made a mistake with the recipe as far as the cookies I made. So instead of making 36, I had 18 larger cookies.
Okay.
And they serve about 50 to 80 people a day. And I got there, and one of the gentlemen who was one of the directors said, "Hey, Steve, hey, it's great to have you here." And I said, "I'm really sorry." I said, "I feel bad. I've only got 18 cookies today." And he just looked at me and he said, all right, I'm going to stop you right there. He goes, you see all these folks here coming in out of the cold in the winter? I said, yeah. He says, the minute they hear the word beach bum, they all know that something was baked with love, homemade, and it's probably still warm because you guys always bring your stuff right away. I said, yeah. He said, if you weren't here, they would be breaking a 5-day-old Entenmann's out of a foil pan. Now, there's nothing wrong with Entenmann's.
Yeah.
And they'd be grateful to have it. But he said, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut these cookies in quarters and we're going to give 72 people, if I did the math right.
Yeah.
72 people a piece of a warm chocolate chip cookie. Don't you ever come in here again and apologize for only having this much, thinking you're not making a difference.
Yeah.
He said,
That's
every
true.
time they hear beach bum, they light up. Of course, when I go there now, if somebody doesn't know me, they'll say, oh, and who are you with a church or an organization? I said, well, I'm Steve the Beach Bum. People look at me and they go, oh my gosh, do you know the Beach Bum Moms? I just shake my head. I said, I started it. I named it. And they're more famous. I said, heck yeah, I know the Beach Bum Moms. I said, it's my mom and my stepmom, and they are the greatest ambassadors of love and kindness in the world. And they'll always say, we love them. They come in once a month and we give them hugs and they treat us with such respect, like we're special. And I said, well, that's what we're all about. So yeah.
Yep.
And I get to bake some peanut butter chocolate chip cookies today because that was their latest request.
Nice.
So I get to do those today. Yeah.
That's amazing. And yeah, if you didn't show up with those 18 cookies, 72 people wouldn't have had a piece of a cookie to share and just be like, wow, this warm cookie. And like, you know, there's gratitude in that. Like you gave them that, because that warm feeling of biting into that piece of that cookie, and then that's going to stick with them, you know, and you created that just by baking 18 cookies, even though it wasn't the 36 you initially intended for, it still made a difference, and you still made the effort and you put yourself out there, and your intention was to feed people with those cookies, and you still managed to do that.
Yeah. And I love that. And sometimes people say, well, you know, Steve, that's not a very healthy thing to give to them. And my answer, of course, going back to humor is, okay, the day you hear a homeless person come running out of the woods towards a shelter saying, oh my gosh, they have, spinach smoothies with a wheatgrass shooter today. I got to get me one of those. I go, the minute you hear somebody say that, I said, then I'll stop baking cookies. But otherwise, we hear the most amazing stories. Oh my gosh, my mom used to make these for me, or my grandmother made me cookies just like this. And you see their eyes close, and sometimes a tear will come out and a smile on their face. And they'll ask, can I give you a hug or a handshake, whatever they're most comfortable with? Cause I'm a hugger.
Yeah. Oh, me too.
And it's one of our other volunteers said, I love making comfort food because that's what these folks need. And so I love it.
Yeah. It always goes back to childhood. It's those core memories of your childhood, and whether they're negative, positive, they always stay with you, and they are the trajectory of your adult life. And then you have the generational, obviously, but it's those core moments that you remember from your childhood, and the fact that you bring that out for them, that's a great memory for them to hold on to, because when they were kids, they didn't think about being homeless. They didn't think about where they were going to get their next meal, you know. And it's not to say there aren't kids that went through a lot and did have those experiences, but it's you making those cookies. It's like, wow, this reminds me of my childhood. This reminds me of like a better time in my life, you know. And it does see it, and all it is just a cookie. But to these people, it means so much more.
Yeah.
And it was simple. Like, you know, you just put together a recipe, you baked it, you used your oven for it. You didn't have to, you know, pay $1 million, or you didn't have to fly it out. It's just a simple, intentional thing that you did. And it created such a ripple effect in these people's life. The fact that, you know, they go around and they're like, oh my God, the beach bums. And it's just, you know, so it's a ripple effect for sure that you're creating. And it's amazing. It's amazing to hear stories like that.
Yeah. And I love being a part of it. And even losing Tina, I was stuck in England for 2.5 weeks
Mm,
just to get through all the paperwork and the processes. And the police, of course, had to do an investigation because it was an untimely death. She was only 56. So for 2.5 weeks, dealing with all of that and making calls after calls, I blew through almost 2,000 minutes of calling card plans, just
wow.
taking care of business.
Yeah.
And I had a notebook with me and some pens. Thank God I brought them because it helped me to process through everything that I had to keep track of. But I also came up with an idea because Tina was one of our founding members of Beach Bum Philanthropy.
Mm,
And I thought, what way can we honor Tina? And I thought of one of her favorite local nonprofits. It's called Friends Emergency Housing. And
mm,
it's mostly single moms with kids, sometimes single dads, but it's families getting back on their feet. And I just thought, what do these people need most? Well, when they finally do get through the program and they get their own apartment, they have nothing. So
mm.
my family and I said, okay, what do they need? Kitchen utensils, cleaning supplies, personal care items, bed linens, all of these things. And we put together a list. We all worked together, put together a list. It's about $200 worth of items. So every time the Friends program reaches out and said, hey, Steve, we have another family. They're moving in 2 weeks and they have 3 kids, ages, blah, blah, blah. We go, okay. So mom and stepmom go shopping because they're, again, Olympic gold medal caliber shoppers. And Tina was amazing at finding deals on everything. So we are part of the rewards programs at so many local stores. We get free stuff. We get discounts and coupons. So as a family now, we gather all of these things and we get to deliver it to the shelter, and it sits in their front office. And then they'll call in the mom or the dad and say, by the way, we're so happy that you're moving into your own place in a couple of weeks. You see all these things here? It's called Tina's Buckets of Love.
Oh,
And we want you to know that that's for you and your family.
that's amazing.
And I delivered the first 2 and I couldn't even speak. I bawled my eyes out and just handed that. We had a 1-sheet designed beautifully with Tina's picture on it and a description of it. I couldn't even speak. And I just handed it to them and just tapped my heart. And they understood. So that's how we honor Tina.
That's amazing. Yep. Tina's still there, even though she's not physically there, but like through acts of love, you're spreading Tina's legacy, even though she's not here to do it herself.
Mhm. Yep.
That's amazing. That's amazing. If there is anything that you can leave our listeners and viewers with, like what's one thing that you want to leave them with that they can always like have with them, like just, in case they're feeling a certain way or something's come up, they can just refer to what you have to say. What would it be?
So many people quote Plato, Socrates, Shakespeare, and all those people. I'm going to quote a little dog named Super Teddy Maximus. He was an 8.5-pound Yorkie Pomeranian mix that Tina and her mother adopted. He lived with her mom. He was a rescue from New Orleans, and one of the amazing nonprofits flew him to New England to be adopted, and Tina and her mom adopted him. And according to her mother, I instantly started pimping him out because I would write motivational quotes from Super Teddy, and eventually it became a book called Bust Out of Your Crate, Super Teddy's Top 20 Tips for People to Be as Happy as Dogs. And the second lesson was wake up every day and wag yourself happy, meaning intentionally put something good in your mind, put something healthy into your mouth, put something pleasing into your ears, put something inspiring into your soul. So wake up every day and wag yourself happy. Don't just turn on the news. Don't fall victim to the negativity of social media. Don't go down those negative rabbit holes. If your faith is important to you, read a couple of pages from whatever your good book is. If you love, like me, music, I put on Sirius XM first thing in the morning, and I listen to a couple of just amazing songs to get me going. I get up at 5 a.m. for my workout every day. Some days I just need to laugh, so I go on YouTube and I find something funny that makes me laugh. And if I'm really having a tough day, I get out of the house, I drive 10, 15 minutes into town, and I commit as many simple free acts of kindness as possible as early in the day as I can. So wake up every day and wag yourself happy. A quote from Super Teddy.
Thank you for that. That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's a pleasure. You're always welcome to come back.
Oh,
Love.
always honored. And thank you so much for inviting me on a recommendation from a dear, dear friend of mine who connected us. So thank you very much for putting your faith in her to invite me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lorianne.
Thank you, Lorianne.
And thank you everyone for tuning in to another episode of The Rania Show. I'm your host, Rania, and I hope you have a wonderful week. And